How is everyone today? We're a little bit early here, so I'm just going to be doing everything, a little bit of everything. Welcome, Adrienne. Adriana or Adrienne? It's Adrienne. Awesome, Adrienne. All right. Amassing Health. Let me check out your, I'm assuming you have a channel here. There you go. Hello, Wendy. How are you? Okay, so you're an or you will be an up and coming channel. All right. Is it a personal experience or is it a collection of you and your circuit? Hey, Deb. Deb, I'm fixing to send you a link about the new site. So you and I will get together maybe later today if you can, or later tonight if you can. Hello, Daniel. That's good, amassing health. There's the more awareness we can raise, then the better. Oh, awesome, Debbie. Oh, thank you. And we're about to. That's really great. We will do that. We will get better. On the new platform, we'll have a way to do blogs and do other things that are effective because it makes it a lot more impactful. And I'm of the generation that used to read articles and everything. That's kind of how I preferred, but that's not the way it is anymore. People want to see and hear. So I adjusted to that long ago. Hello, Tina. Yes, amassing health. That is such a good question. And I will weigh in on that when right at the time. Let's see, we are a couple minutes. I'll get started so that more people can get in on that. How's it going, Tina? Luke, welcome. Romania, how's the situation out there? What's it looking like? How many people in the hospital? I just got confirmation from my brother who is in Cornwall, in Hudson, New York, and he confirmed that two very young men, these are military guys that, are can do better than a normal physical, that they are sick and on ventilators. So I am now deeply concerned that those may be rare cases, but there's two at his base. Good evening, Guitar Man. How are you? You guys who are coming from outside the USA, let me know on your introductory remarks. How are things going? 400 infected, 3 deaths so far, but we are expecting more in the next weeks. Yes, the next month for everybody is going to be super critical. And I'm going to text my brother right now and see if he can't update me These are young, like 25, 30, not more than 30 years old, young guys who are on ventilators. So I am very concerned. Hello, Julie. Welcome. William Beck, welcome. I'm going to find out, Debbie. I don't know if this is really, but I mean, these are. I mean, how bad could it be? These are guys who are, who are MPs for the Army. I mean, they couldn't be too bad in health. Happy Sunday to you, Meatball. Welcome to communism. Hey, JJ, how you doing? How are you holding up? I know JJ lost some weight here, quite a bit, and had some struggles of his own. How you doing, man? I meant to call you the other day. Some of you guys I've worked with, and others I'm still getting to meet. And as the viewership for this channel changes, every channel is evolving. There's a life cycle. You either never get started, or you get started and then drop off, or sometimes it goes in waves. You have people that fall in love with you and then fall out of love with you. So sometimes that happens. Things are crazy here with people panicking. Yes, indeed they are. Oh, yes, JJ, I'm doing just fine. It's everybody around me that's going nuts. I'm in great shape. Just got done with a workout today. I did chest, triceps, and shoulders, and I feel a little bit worked. I'm still in my on my fast, so I'm not going to have quite the strength that I have when I'm well fed. But I'm doing this as a scarcity measure, so my weapons are loaded and ready in case the worst were to happen. But I doubt. I don't think I'm in the target. People at apartments, like I am right now. My family is out at the ranch, so I'm not worried about them. They're on lockdown, order of me, but everybody else is. It's just me out here now. So, but yes, JJ, I feel super, man. I feel as good as I've felt in 20 years. So, the jail population is booming. Oh wow, JJ is works for the incarceration. If you guys are confused, and he gets a workout every day because he deals with some of the worst felons and people who make our society a nightmare. He does that, and he's here to testify that it's a bad situation. All right, here's his update. We have 2 people, from West Point who tested positive. No update. The other is pulling through. So one of them is doing really bad shape and is getting close. Things are looking bleak, but the other is doing okay and appears to just be to have like a really bad flu. Some people this affects at different rates. Some people have really bad that they're just sick, like a cold, and other people, or some don't know it at all, and then others are fighting for their lives, and then others are dying. So this is incredible, folks. This is unbelievable. So, I believe you, man. I believe you, JJ. This is beverages for today. Drinking water. I have 2 of these ready to go. In my trusty Bubba mug here, I have the remains of Starbucks French roast coffee with nothing added. Don't want to jinx a fast. Of course, you know what this is. Chaga. And this is 2 chunks boiled over 1.5 hours on low heat. Number 3 on the stove, 3.5 to 4, and then taken off. And I can't tell you how nice it is to have another beverage aside from coffee that is deeply satisfying. So that is one of the most beautiful things One of the most beautiful things around. People in prison are on permanent lockdown, no changes for them. Hey, if they're getting changes in the normal routine, then that wouldn't be fair to us. So they definitely need to stay put. The toilet paper has me thinking of something. Stores in a lot of parts seem to be doing okay now that the trucks are on overdrive and different things are happening. It seems to be okay for the time, but it's only a matter of time with more infections that the challenge won't be done. I'm afraid not. So those are and here's the star beverage of today. And a lot of people don't know this. For those of you who are doing a juice fast, tomato juice is one of the magic bullets because number one, it offers a type of beverage that is non-sweet and non-sugar reactive, at least not overly so. And it is a stabilizing beverage. Now, this is pasteurized, so it is not fresh, but you have to deal with that sometimes. So for $1.60 at Kroger, you can get 100% tomato juice for just over $1.60, and it is the whole bottle. Like if you drank the whole thing, that would be like 300 calories. But you're not going to drink all of this, and believe me, you don't want to. So that's a look at the calories there. It is 50 calories, and it's just tomato juice that is a stabilizing beverage for when you want a little upper. And the first day I bought like 6 of these. The first day you do it, I did too much, and I kind of got queasy. But if you do them in like just 7 to 12 ounces, when you need a boost and you're fasting, you can go much, much longer. I'm talking about juice fasting, which I'm on day 15 of. So I think it's day 15. But this is a good beverage, and I'm going to have some later, along with cucumbers, and there'll be separate beverages, cucumbers and celery. So I'm feeling great, folks, and I'm not losing too much strength. Actually, I feel pretty good because I'm not having to spend any energy digesting. So anybody else, feel free to update on their status. Debbie says, I've heard they are doing early release for nonviolent offenders to help with county jail populations. I heard that down here. JJ, you might want to weigh in. And he confirms they are also releasing a lot of offenders for petty offenses, so theft and petty stuff. Deputy said domestic arrests are up because people are freaking out over their finances, and those tensions are going to come to the surface. Folks, that is the problem here. You're going to have all these unresolved issues coming along, and the real challenge will be all of this stuff that's unresolved is going to come back to the surface. They're getting sick of each other, and then they're stuck at home on top of that. Notices have appeared, too, in lieu of arrest. Amassing Health says, I had a massive spiritual awakening last year, so I don't see the world the same. I can sense the fear-based energy all around, but I have lots of peace right now. Hold on to it, because it will be put to the test over the next month or so, maybe 6 weeks. Weighing in from Atlanta. That's good. I'm so happy for you, Amassing Health. That paradigm shift, that shift in worldviews, I've had a number in my life. Finding religion, losing religion, and finding self-confidence and my mind, my ability to reason, and then being able to listen to the entire universe. I feel like I definitely understand that. And then, of course, to have that heightened with fasting is another level, and people around you will not understand it. So, Luke, and I will jump back to that. Now that we're started, I want to get to this question that Amassing Health had. I thought your perspective was great. Can you expand upon why socialism may or may not be the best way to address the possible economic downturn? Here's the problem with socialism as I see it. when a society sets up a socialist system, every single one has had tons of trouble. Socialism is the most universal model. So if you have a community of, let's say, 15 or 50 or even 100 tribesmen, the hunters will get the meat and will distribute it to those at home, so that when there's an overflow, there's providing for the young over themselves, the way tribal chieftains would do hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago now. The problem is, as society grows, that is not a fitting model, because you get inequalities that develop. It's like and there's a book on this, The Science of Good and Evil by Michael Shermer. And Michael Shermer owns the Skeptic Society, and he has a chapter on morality. And one of his points is on how, if you have a society of 150 or less people, you can have a village elder correct a vandal. So if you have somebody correct a vandal and say, look, you have done something wrong, you can do informal counseling. You don't need a jail. You don't need all of those things. You don't need courts. You don't need those things. But once you get above that, society becomes so that the inequalities, the class system destroys that. So you have those who are making an hourly wage, and they're being destroyed by a lack of education. They're being destroyed by lack of skills. And then which it becomes a caste system. So now you have an underrepresented group, and then you have those who become a drain on the system. You have the very rich and you have the very poor. So they're each pulling to offset each other, and then you have a middle class. Well, as a society becomes more unstable, you have the middle class disappearing. And that's what we see today. And the reason is, and you can go back actually if you want to look up and determine that I'm not just making this up, that this is actually real. Read the book, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. It's written by Edward Gibbon in 17 something. But it's a very good book because it points out the stages that America's going through. The thing that led to Rome's demise was fighting unnecessary wars, because the delegates would make good relations with the heads of different nations, and they would start fighting their wars for them, and they would start sending troops and then offering free bread to the masses. So they would go on and say, people would get in line just like an unemployment line out of the 1920s, 1930s, and during the Great Depression, and they would just give stuff away. Well, the problem is the caste system each one kept doing more of what they were doing. So the poor kept borrowing, the rich kept giving, and then what was left of the middle class began to dwindle, because you have a downward slope. So eventually those at the top are going to come down and they're going to become middle class. And then eventually they're not really that much. They're not top class anymore, because they're losing traction because you have a drain. It's like, do a search sometime about lotto winners and how most of them have committed suicide, been killed, been ransomed by their family. They lost their wealth and became broke again. Why? Because they thought that $40 million was enough to save the world with. And so they did stupid stuff like buy school systems, and they got into charitable causes. What happened? All of the losers began to drain the system. And this is what happens with socialism. It's what happens in Europe. It's what happens in France. They can't even fire you in most places overseas. And those of you in Europe, please comment, because from those of you, from any of the United Nations, it's not the same here. And in Texas, it's at will work, at will employment. You can be fired for things. Overseas, you can't, because people have been bleeding the system for so long that everybody has all these rights set up, and it's an act of Congress to be able to do anything. So if you apply that to here, you have a crisis going on, and you have a socialist system set up. You have all of this being made available to the public. Ultimately, the lesson to be learned here is that it costs to be alive. Your ability to put away wealth and to put away for a rainy day comes in handy right now in these sorts of times, because there's only so much to go around. And of course, who is it that's doing all of the vandalism, really, and who's going to be doing it, because it hasn't really started yet. But all of this, it comes back to your sense of what you're entitled to. And I know that may sound cruel to some, for those of you who do not share a conservative viewpoint, but it's absolutely the case that if you bleed the system, no system can support it. All of these trillions of dollars the U.S. is throwing around, some of it, and you can go back and look at the Obama administration. Obama spent $400 million on Hindu relations. Why would we want to do a thing like that? Relations occur simply as a matter of course. But all of these special interest groups, another drain on the system. Instead of everybody saying, look, here's what you need to do. Instead of letting the market set a wage, they haven't done that. And so the result has been that you have all of these inequalities now. And so what happens? Well, it's a time of crisis where everybody needs charity. Everybody needs more of a socialist viewpoint. But there's not enough to go around. And that's the problem with healthcare. A lot of people talk to me about Cuban healthcare and Canadian healthcare, and they compare it to the US. It's not comparable because there are people in Canada who had serious injuries, and they had to come to the US to get treatment because the waiting list is so long that they would die. And I'm not going to belabor it too much, but honestly, you wouldn't want the system we have is broken. I'll grant you there's improvements that need to be made, but the idea of a socialist system, it only works for smaller units. When a nation gets larger like ours, the economy has to set the market rate. That's why teachers and firefighters and police don't make enough money. And rap stars do, and comedians and all of these big shots do. But that's the nature of what the universe tells you. It tells you the way things have to be, all things being equal. So those are my views. You don't have to share them. But right now, the most primitive form of society, of course, is socialism. And so ultimately, a complex society, you go back to the animal dynamic. So we want to distribute, we want to give up our salaries, and a lot of people, like the CEO of Marriott right now, just gave up his. I forget what his salary was. It was ridiculous, but he's given it all back to research, Kerona research. So elaborate on that and share if you think I've answered that properly, or if you think I've addressed the heart of the issue. As someone who understands that there is no free lunch. Just like there is no lack of censorship, there is no free speech, ultimately, we're limited in what we're entitled to. That's the lesson in life. Every time you come into this world, a baby, a newborn, you have to have the reserves in you to live, to adjust, to grow, to fight infections. And if you can't do that, then you're not worthy. That's the hardcore iron rule lesson behind all of this. And you have a lot of people who are in poverty already. They can't afford to keep the lights on. They can't afford to keep anything on. What are they going to do? They're going to have to find it in them to lay low and to, exploit the system. Go and be a stalker if you have to, if you can't pay the bills during these sorts of times. This is why, and it's Luke. What is it? Luke 13:15. To him who has shall more be given. To him who has not, even what he thinks he has shall be taken away. That's capitalism for you. The bigger corporations become massive, the weaker die off. And then there's those few in the middle that survive. Folks, that is the divine hand. It's not me versus my views versus somebody else. To him who has shall more be given. That's why once you get a certain job, you're worth that for the rest of your life unless you can show more value. So the first job you get that keeps you off the street is really good. Eventually, you move up in a company. You get paid a little bit more. You see how it works? You're worth what you are receiving now. And so that's the hard lesson that I can say in times of crisis that I can't say normally. Same thing with your weight and weight loss. You are right now what you've sown. If you spent years getting fat, eating Cheetos and burritos and letting yourself go, guess what? You are receiving now everything that was coming to you. That's always the way it is. To him who has shall more be given. That is divine truth. Whether you agree with it or not, everywhere around you in life will teach you that lesson. That's my favorite Bible verse because it's the ultimate truth, regardless of whether you believe it or not. So weigh in on that by all means. Luke says, I have a friend who is a doctor in Germany, told me that the situation is no joke. It's very serious. He has never seen a situation like this. Cases are up in Atlanta to 620, 25 dead. This country made it through World War II by staying calm. Valentine MRV stated, I visited 7 gas stations last night looking for toilet paper, found some at the last stop. Ridiculous. Wow, you are one of the ones who will, not have to take a shower after every bowel movement, I guess. Hey, we got to find the humor in it, right? As long as the grocery stores are replenished, there will be calm. But if that stops, then it will get crazy. I agree with that. But the other side of that is the president's going to have to step in and order mortgage payments and rent payments to be stayed, because that is electrical payments too, because that's going to be the other factor. If people are broke and then when they burn off their last $50, their last $100, that's a bad day in paradise. My spiritual awakening happened after a 33-day water fast, Amassing Health says. Wow, you went 33 days on water. That is really good. I've never been that long. That's really, 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 really good. My longest on water was about 10 days, 7 days or something like that. I think 7 days on water I did. This is 15 days is the longest now on juice and water. I go water, coffee. And here's the thing. Once you guys do, you've been doing an extended juice fast, you become so insulin sensitive that even drinking coffee, like a few sips, you get jacked, man. You want to my heart doesn't know what to do with it. So I have to be really careful and only do this like every other day. I have a coffee every other day. I have the diet soda I've given up just about completely because it tastes like battery acid after a while. It's so strong when you've been eating pure. My go-to beverages are celery and cucumber, just a giant 72-ounce celery and cucumber, of course, tomato juice that I just sip, ocean spray cranberry juice just on the go. They're pasteurized, but they're just go-to beverages to grab and go, because you're not always going to eat perfect, or drink perfect, even if you're fasting. So you just go as you go, and then if you're doing a juice fast like I am. So, and again, this is all because of poverty and the scarcity time that this is, the famine that we're upon. I want to make all the rest of my food last just in case. It is transformative. You're not the same person. Once you go OMAD too for an extended period of time, you're not the same person. You will literally be moving in a time warp when everybody else around you will be stuck. Everybody will be stuck and feasting, and their minds, it's as if their priorities are different. It's as if their worldview is different, even if they happen to agree with you. It's the craziest thing. It really is the craziest thing. No, nobody's seeking to have the awareness. It's just something that happens to you. That's why it's like people that feel like they're going to be hungry all the time. If you can commit to it, you won't be hungry all the time. Your body will kick in, and you will have strength. You will have the strength that, quantum, that we had to do that. I think everybody on the last stream, if you watch the last Comfort Cast, I may even keep that name, Kerona, as a testament to censorship. I really may do that, Kerona, because we couldn't put the real thing or they'll demonetize and possibly delete the video because the servers are being overrun. And plus, they just don't want any false information to be spread about it. So I've decided I might actually go with that. Maybe name the social network that or something. What do you think? Weigh in on that in the comments, please. Guitar Man says, how much Jesus Christ saves? Anna says, whatever you must call out to, however you find the divine, I'm all for it. Guitar Man says, how much is toilet paper on eBay? You know what? You might try Amazon Kitchen. It has household. They have some. I buy through them sometimes, and it just shows up on the doorstep. I don't know on eBay. Somebody check. Debbie says, I totally blew my fasting this week. Earlier in the week, reverted back to emotional eating, back on OMAD now, but the fear did throw me off. Got to admit it. Folks, reverse that. The fear is what is keeping me not only I can do this anyway. You guys know this is something I can just do. But the thing that's making me not even consider quitting is because of this present predicament. If your brain is such that fear gets you into eating, you know that now is the time to do whatever mental game you have to trick yourself into doing the opposite. That's not a normal thing. During fear, your adrenals should be cutting off hunger a little bit. So you're not perceiving this correctly. It should be the opposite reaction. So you need to readjust your thinking, however you have to default to when things are relaxed. That's when you can say, okay, now we can bring back in the normal food. Now we can go to the beach and do. You want to associate that with normalcy, so that you don't put yourself in a situation where otherwise you're going to end up you're going to end up storing. And what you're going to do is you're going to find yourself massively overweight. A lot of people that do that. Now, Debbie's got it under control. She's on the train, but a lot of people are not. And this is what happens: is they stock up. Their body doesn't know the difference, so they just keep eating and keep eating, and and there's no end in sight, because they don't realize it takes a conscious choice to do what animals do unconsciously. When you're feeding and feasting, yeah, you're putting away fat. So that for a day, your body's trying to guard against what the worst that may happen. But to kick your mind, because we don't live in the same world as the bear, not quite, we're getting close here, but the famine kicks the bear into hibernation. Their circumstances are helping us. Here, your circumstances are actually helping you. So let that be. Remind yourself, now is not a good time. Somebody hashtag that or something. Now is not a good time. I don't know how the hashtag thing works. I don't do Twitter or Facebook or any of that. But I guess what is that? Twitter or Instagram? What is that? I keep seeing the hashtags, but I've never stopped to look them up or to deal with them or anything. French roast Starbucks on the go coffee. It's pretty strong. I think it's just me, though. I think it's just I'm so sensitive. Crazy times. I'm in UK. Miss Fire says, and all change here. Trying to stay on track. Bought plenty of fresh food and cooking wholesome meals and staying busy. Not easy with this added stress, but achievable. Keep going. But here's the thing: y'all in the UK, you have even less free speech than the US. The US has the most free speech. That in the Netherlands, as much as you can get. The rest of the world, and a lot of times now, what you're going to see, and the video I posted last night was from. Those were Australia or UK or somewhere in across the pond, but it's going to end up everywhere. So again, what you see in one place, people aren't used to that, and what they're doing is freaking, but they don't know that they're contributing to riot consciousness. They're creating an alternate consciousness. This is an example, folks, of how people don't know themselves. Let me tell you a story real quick, since we have plenty of time. We have 3 hours. So about 4 years ago, I had a security team that monitored security for a hotel. And I hired a bunch of extra people to work overnights during New Year's Eve, because there's so many people. This was downtown Austin. They were flooding the hotel. There was no way. So we had to set up stanchions and block off access and let only people in who had guest keys. And people started to hate us because, it was a mob situation. So a certain rapper came back in there and said, "Hey, party in my place." Well, we had to stop all of these people. And thankfully, I had hired a good bunch of police officers that understood the crowd consciousness. And what we had to do to stop this mob from ransacking the hotel was let some of them in, because if we stopped them all, we would end up in a fight with them. And so we had, myself, I was out there as well, having to, get physical with people in a dirty crowd, throwing bottles and cans. And if I mentioned the rapper, you guys would know his name. and I'm not going to do that just because. But this person, trashed the hotel, but we were able to make good on all of this because we had good people that knew what to do. But one of the girls that was there was she was very submissive, and this goes to the point that I'm making. About people not knowing themselves. So when this one of the guys on the dance floor, we had to close down the whole dance floor in the event rooms because the people were drunk and they dropped their glass on the floor and it broke and shattered. And of course, people were dancing on glass. They didn't know it because they were high and drunk. So you can imagine how bad this is. We had to turn the lights back on. We had to stop the music, which got people furious. And everything it was a madhouse. But one of these guys, these sorority boy, pretty boy types, came up there and grabbed one of my security officers and started dancing with her. What did she do? She started dancing with him. And I said, what the heck were you doing? She didn't know what hit her because she was very submissive. He was very dominant and uninhibited. And she just went with it. I said, I don't pay you to dance with these people. What are you doing? You guys don't realize this. Those of you who are more dominant and more secure in yourself, you can go up to someone and give them a bag and say, hold it, and they'll hold it just because you dared to do it. That's so crazy. And it happened once and then twice. And she said, I don't know what's wrong with me. He just come over to. She didn't want to cause a confrontation. She didn't want to stand him down. So when people are faced with a situation they're not prepared for, I ended up hiring her, but I trained her. I said, look, you're going to have to make a scene. You're going to have to confront sometimes. This was before all of the rapper stuff happened. I'm confusing my stories because I'm just talking unplanned here. But the big challenge, the big challenge with all of this was people not knowing it. So what's happening here to make application? In our society, people aren't used to dealing with scarcity, not on this level. So they're freaking. And they're just going along with it, and they're literally watching themselves do this. So in the store, when somebody freaks out, when somebody starts arguing, they're in a state of panic. They don't know they're creating a scene. Same thing with cops, and JJ can weigh in on this extensively. The reason cops have to grab people very firmly when they go to arrest them is because once you touch them, it finally occurs to them that they're losing their freedom. And what do? They start squirming and fighting. And that's why you see them go to the ground on these cops episodes. And all of these liberal people say, why did he do that? Why was he so rough with that man? Why was he so rough with that woman? It was because that person didn't know what they were doing. And they were escalating the force continuum. So there was no choice but to physically restrain them. But then when one person uses more force, the other, and resisting, and so forth and so on, and it results in a tasing or something that makes the news. So riot consciousness syndrome is a big deal. All right, what did I miss here? Kerona, whatever we want to call it. Let's stick with Kerona. Kerona Live. Maybe that should be the podcast. I want to do a podcast. And Kerona Live podcast. How about it? How does that sound? I'm seriously thinking of that, guys. I'm not joking. I'm so disappointed in YouTube's response. Amazon is out. Okay, so Amazon is out of supplies, at least toilet paper. David Goggins, he was that 36-year-old fat guy who turned Navy SEAL. Use isolation to become a savage. Yes, you're joking, but you're not. That's absolutely the case. Sitting a few feet from me is a M&P 9 Smith & Wesson handgun. You have to have a side of you that is protective, that is ready to ultimately, you came from savages. You are a descendant of a savage. You have to, how many of you could kill a chicken? I couldn't. How many of you could go out and, chase a buffalo off a ravine? I couldn't. I don't think I could. Maybe I could, working with enough people. That's how we got smart, right? Am I on the wrong path here? That to me that makes sense. That's what I have found to be true. When you become a savage, you learn to control yourself. Remember my video on Epicureanism versus Stoicism. Every nation is born Stoic and dies Epicurean. meaning you're born as a builder and a person who knows hardship and struggle. And then you throw all of that away and you ultimately forget the lessons your ancestors had. That's sad, but that's where we're at. People have forgotten how to survive. Yes, I do, Jarek. I do believe that we're going to see tens of thousands, if not millions, dying. Hopefully not dying, but getting sick, and then it will level off in about a month, maybe a month and a half. I think this is inevitable. So that's Twitter. Okay, I figured it was. Now is not the time. Here we go. Misfire says we are in trouble here. Semi-lockdown now, but full lock. Where are you coming from, Misfire? I don't remember. Now is not the time. You know what, Guitar Man? That is actually a good idea. I have said several times I'm going to do a book on OMAD, but I keep getting stalled by catering to different audiences. For instance, an approach for diabetics versus an approach for people who are nightshade intolerant. Those of you who are nightshade intolerant could never do my tomato juice here because it reacts bad with you. So a lot of this is self-adjustment. And that's why OMAD is so great, because it forces you to look within at your own journey and your own disabilities. And I've coached people who could barely eat anything. They had such bad celiac, they could not eat hardly anything normally, and getting calories was a challenge. I have a lady who can only drink cucumber juice and maybe certain meats like chicken or something she can only do because so that's very difficult. But that's why I've been negligent on a book, and I do still want to get to one. One thing we're going to do, folks, we're going to have the website out it's not up yet, but it's still my old movie review site. But joeholmanonline.com is the site I've had for years, since 2002. And I as a ghostwriter and freelance writer and as an independent critic, I'm going to probably turn that into a mecca site for all of my different, and we'll have like a social network there for those of you who want to contribute more, and have a private forum where no censorship is going to be an issue. So we won't have all of this BS to contend with several years ago. So you won't have any of the updated material yet. But yeah, Debbie and Mary and a few others have been, as well as a few people here locally, I'm working with a company it's going to cost me some money, but I'm going to set up a network where we'll be able to meet unmolested. We'll still have YouTube, but I'll only just present material on there from a podcast. I won't use it as much, except maybe as secondary. So for those of you who want to keep with YouTube, you'll still be able to, but I'm not gonna keep with them as poorly as they've handled all of this, because I'll always be grateful that I'll always be grateful for YouTube, getting me off the ground. But I'm not going to. I don't have much. The censorship thing has become too big a deal, and that is that. And so, 16 or 18:6, you can make that work depending on your metabolism. The problem with any sort of standard intermittent fasting model is that if you have a window that is not one plate, that is not meal based, you're going to have trouble. If you're like some, consuming too much food in it. As a big guy, if I had done that, I would, in 6 hours, I could eat a horse. I could, in 36 minutes, I could eat 8 plates at a Chinese restaurant, and then suck it down with 4 bowls of ice cream. As a big guy, it never would have worked for me, because I would have said, well, it's technically within the window. But I was a binger as well as just a guy who had bad eating habits. So it's different for me. If you can stay in control, then I think the world of that. I got a guy down here who's looking to lose weight, and he's transitioning from an 18:6 into, because he's also very active, into a 4 hour. Then, but whatever will work for you is a good arrangement. It's funny, as I'm on my 36-day intermittent fasting, and it's helped a lot with preparing for this virus to some extent. Oh, absolutely. I know I can make the food last, which is, that's what the bear does, is, we learn from nature. Folks, nothing is new. The sonar of bats, All of our telescopes, all of that comes from nature. The eye, you see, the divine does not give anything extra. Our technology and all of our pride and ego, it all comes back down to you sitting alone in your room with a glass of water. Mark that down. That's really what it is. Can you stare at your walls and drink a glass of water and be happy? That's the secret of all life and happiness right there. Totally believe you should do podcasts. Debbie, I'll do one better. I've already got it up and running, but I have to troubleshoot. There's one more step I need to do before, but I'm going to get with you on that. So I'm probably going to call you tonight if you have some time. Just let me know. And a lot of people, guys, a lot of people that I have consulted with, including Debbie, are going to be helping me with the new site. So again, if you're on board, you can shout out here or send me an email. Last year, and you can start using the new address. The domain is up, joe@joeholmanonline.com. I'm going to put it in the. Brian says, last year I used OMAD and keto and lost 25 pounds, but found keto restrictive. My son was born in November. I moved away from fasting, lack of sleep, and gained it back. Now practicing OMAD and down. Down 5 pounds, 2 weeks. Really, really good. Goggins did say that yesterday in his latest clip. Nothing like armchair quarterbacks when it comes to uses of force. No one will ever understand until they are in the situation themselves. That's what JJ mentions, is what any cop can mention to you. Those who have been active in the field, who know what it's like to restrain somebody, and JJ can tell you at length. You restraining somebody, you get all kinds of injuries. You get sprained wrists, you get sprained muscles in your back and legs from bending. I'm talking about doing the restraining. I've done it, and in pretty limited encounters. I'm not comparable to JJ, but JJ could knock anyone out in this. JJ is a tank, man. For those of you who don't know him, JJ could, he could. I don't know. He's getting up there like me, but he could still get in MMA and do some damage. This guy is something else. But I can tell you that when you go to do any sort of physical encounter, it's tough, man. It's not like in a dojo where you're sparring and you have people cooperating with you. It's not like people imagine cops should be. Misfires from the UK. So you're going to be, you guys in the UK, y'all gotta. Let me tell you, I'm worried about you, because I've seen, UK and the US, there's so many differences, but just be careful with, from what I've seen now. I had a guy just email me a video on some mob action in grabbing away people who are out and just doing stuff like purse snatching and, petty crime. P. Lovett says, what is your input on dry fasting, 23 hours, and OMAD combo? How many people here are familiar with Robert Brockway? He was, or am I pronouncing that right? Brockwood, or he was a guy who did 5 days of dry fasting. He ended up dying. Here's the thing with dry fasting. I don't recommend it anymore. Unless you really are collecting a lot of water. You can dry fast if you are experienced, but I honestly, your kidneys, the problem is if there's any sediment in your kidneys and you restrict all the water, then your kidneys will fail, and it will be nearly impossible to restart them. There have been people, for instance, that were left as POWs and prisoners and were not attended to, and they went 2 or 3 days and they ended up with kidney failure, and some of them were able to recover, some of them were not. I've pretty much quit recommending it because you can get about the same benefits water fasting. If you're going to do 23 hours and then jump to OMAD, I see that as just fine, but please don't ever play games with hydration. Please. But I've done it. I've done a day and a half dry fasting, and your body just sucks all your water right out of you. It is freaky. I felt great because I got a lot of endorphins really fast. My body adjusted pretty well, and I did it coming off a binge, and I felt very, very good. But would I recommend that? I think overall, if you want to start your fast with like 2 days of 1 day dry and then 2 days water and then 1 day OMAD, like, you can mix that up, but it depends if you can handle it. When I deal with people who are frustrated and they come to me for counseling and they're very depressed, um, uh, excuse me, I don't recommend they do anything except do one meal. If they come to me and they're a high performer, they've tried different diets and that they feel confident that they got it, then I will allow them to do a couple days juice fasting or a couple days water only to kickstart their metabolism. But again, the problem is a lot of people think they're ready and they're not. I want stability to be the highest platform. So you would rather be able to do what you can keep doing versus what you think, to try something to shock your body. And I did a video on stop punishing your body, which is what people do on the dieting game. They start doing all these crash diets, and then and the result is they end up tearing up their body. And so that is the nature of the beast. I know you mentioned working for a hotel, having to let some staff go. Do you feel that corporations are firing, furloughing employees too soon? Not at all. Trust me, my hotel is down. We're, our profit, and I've seen others. I talked to all of these GMs here locally in my network and from where I came from in Austin and San Antonio, and everybody, some of them are closing their doors permanently. They won't be able to come back open because they were too small. I come from a big corporation and have lots of money, and it's not too soon. Because there's no, it's a good question, very good question, but no, because there has to be a level of preparation for that, because otherwise it's eating into the profits and the stock is down. All of this is down. We're talking, it's unavoidable. I mean, it's sad, but one of the things we're doing at my hotel is we're not opposing unemployment for those who have to get unemployment. And of course, that's screwed right now too, because nearly 700%, more than 600% unemployment is up suddenly. There's not enough staff. You can't get through to anybody. What kind of industries do you feel? All of them, travel, hospitality, the car business, all of these. Of course, the car business can repurpose their factories. Hospitality, hotels cannot. Hotels, restaurants will probably hurt the most of all. Yeah, of course, real estate, all of this, folks. We're talking about major devastation here. This is not high talk. This is not drama. This is, you guys who are looking forward to the new site, please use that link I provided and drop me an email with your email address and name, and I will send you a link when it's ready. A lot of people leaving YouTube. Oh yes, Melissa, it's ridiculous. Like, how many people? Do you guys know about Buds 131? Is there anybody, if you've heard of Buds 131 is a friend of mine and a guy who, I don't know him personally really, but he has been in my network of people who fact check for people who lie on their resumes. He's a Navy SEAL, fake Navy SEAL buster. So he has a list, a database of all Navy SEALs from the beginning until now. And basically he works with HRs and captain of industry and people like me to make sure that these people who claim to be Navy and military are actually who they say they are. Well, he got deleted from YouTube because some loser complained that he was harassing him because he was Native American. He was a lying guy who got on TV, and MSN and ABC and all these people brought him on and said, oh, look at this poor Navy SEAL. He's been neglected. He never served as a Navy SEAL a day in his life. Well, Buds 131 called him out. He complained, and that got him banned, which is ridiculous. He was telling the truth. So that's what we live in now, where protected classes are so important. And I'm in HR, I should be on the liberal side, but I'm not. This is how bad things have gotten, folks, where just an allegation is enough to end someone's career. And Buds 131 was a very big channel. He came back. He's a former Buds 131, for those of you who want to look him up and support it. For those of you who like my kind of plain, direct speech, you need to look him up. You'll enjoy his channel, and he's funny as all get out. He and his wife go across the country exposing frauds. You got all these stolen valor people who go around claiming, you know, what they're trying to do is use service dogs when they don't, that they were never, you know, all of these people who try to latch on to the benefits of people that are actually active military or past military, and what they want is free meals and all of this stuff. That's wrong. And so if you want to go and support him, and he has a site, extremesealexperience.com. Go to and support him as he will. It's great for $10 a month. It's great entertainment. You see the full video where he exposed these liars, and a lot of them are pastors and doctors and people that you would think would not be lying, but they got mad at him because all of this stuff happened. Yeah, but YouTube it's really sad. Because I like the platform, but it has become a mockery of decency. If you tell the truth on anything, all it takes is for somebody to come along and copyright strike your video. I've had that on a few of mine. I've had people just make allegations because they didn't like something I said. Scott the truck driver, I've seen a few of his videos. I don't think I subscribe to him. I have so many. I subscribe to a bunch of stuff, and I have days where I binge watch different channels as I have opportunity. Contact you. I'm going to contact you tonight, Debbie. I'll holler at you if something crazy doesn't come up. Thank you, Chris Thompson. Daycare owners and directors, you're still open? Wow, where do you hail from? I'm surprised. I'm surprised you can do that. A lot of these places, it's the kids. The kids carry all this stuff home. Their parents get something, they get something. And they got no immune system, these kids. Brian McGuire says, I think YouTube has a swatting problem. Would love to stream like this myself, but I've witnessed other content creators get swatted and it makes me sick. Yeah, it absolutely does. Okay, you're from Georgia too. All right. All right, I'm going to take a brief break. I will be back. Make a little run here. Hang tight. All right. All righty. So you haven't been mandated to close. I'm surprised. I'm surprised. Yeah, it seems like all those city ordinances are. Are you Atlanta, Georgia, or Georgia as in Georgia? Like actually the what is it? Province or like Georgia, Russia, right? Or no? I think you Atlanta, Georgia, right? Or the state of Georgia. Checking temps at the door. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay, yeah. So they are essential businesses. I guess they would fall. Yeah. Okay, that would make sense then. Gotcha. All right. Southeast Georgia. I went through there when my brother lived there. I really loved the tall trees, and now I'm in Houston. We have tall trees. It's really, really good. But yes, this censorship, folks, if you don't care about it, I've talked to people in my forums right now, forums.omad.info. If you want to go there and look on the MyFitnessPal side of things, a lot of them don't want to move. So they're going to stay where they are. So I'm going to leave that forum, and things will continue as they are because a lot of people are complacent. They don't really care. They don't miss all the features they could have. They don't really worry about any of it. Me, I'm not happy with that. So I'm going to create a better platform for contributors I'll have one for those who are working with me professionally and a place, an actual network where you'll have a good environment. Some people are like that. Some people really don't care. They really think that there's not a fight going on, that it's all's well as ends well. That's not the way it is because the problem that people have. All right, JJ, take it easy, man. All right, I'll holler at you later. After I holler at Debbie, we'll talk. Debbie says it's an age-old story. Until it impacts them, they won't change. That's the problem. Spot on. That's the magic button there. The magic is understanding that free speech affects everybody, folks. The reason I am pro free speech is because that applies to the worst. That applies to people that are government haters, white supremacists, black supremacists, and ethnic haters. They all have the right to speak. Until they cross the line and become a threat, they have the right to speak. And you have an entire generation now that does not believe that or does not know that. And that's the challenge. Melissa, I lost the weight I'll say I concluded I lost the bulk of the weight in April 27th of 2014, and I started June 1st, 2013. I continued to lose a little bit of weight through August 20th or 19th, I think, of 2014. So I've kept it. I have stayed between 185 and 215 throughout, 7 years now? 6 years? Hello, Highwayman. Welcome to the party. Very chill party here. So, 6 years I have maintained my weight loss with the ebb and flow of life, and everybody can. You just understand the cycles and respect the cycles. When did you find me, Melissa? How long ago? Elapim says, hello, how can I help my father who is on high blood pressure meds fast? Also, he wants to get healthy to eventually stop taking meds. Can this even be possible? How old is your father? Bonjour, Mr. French. Jackass. Sorry for forgive me. I remember when Debbie started consulting with me, she was taking blood pressure meds, and she's taking none today, guys. Again, she's lost almost 80 pounds. Debbie, that's why she's also a qualified person to speak on this. Here's why I ask you if you're. He's 66. Here's the problem: when a person gets over 50, or even over 45, they're it's they get. I mean, saying set in their ways goes without saying, but it's harder to find the drive. And you'll see this in people's lives. When Moses died in Deuteronomy 34, you'll see that it says that his natural force was not abated. And that word in the Hebrew is prune. He was not pruned, meaning he was not dried up. You'll find that it is a gift with certain people when they age to stay vital, to stay youthful, to stay strong, and to stay able to change, aka Debbie, who shared her age just the last broadcast, despite being older than some of us, maintains vitality. If when a person loses that vitality, aka my father, who's mid-70s, he won't do it. I can't get him to do it. He just says, I get too hungry. And I say, you won't be hungry forever. But it doesn't matter how I pitch it, because he's in a position where he's not able to build up enough commitment to even get started. And this is where the difference comes in. If you have someone in your life who's not, it's hurtful because they're right there next to you and you can't get them to make changes. My aunt and uncle say to my dad, hey, you've got a son who's done all this and has a YouTube channel and everything, and he's kind of known for health, and yet you are, eating Oreos all day. How did this happen? Well, he just winks at it because he's listening, but he's not really listening. So again, the meaning of natural force abated. Your life force is more than your physical age. It is your ability to do things when you are older. And that's why you see people who, despite the guy who taught my police academy was 77, and yet he was thin and in shape and still carrying a gun and still working like the guys who were 21 that he was teaching at the academy to be a cop. How does that happen? Because his natural life force was still there. Your success in fasting is based on raw anger, number one, your ability to use your anger to make effective changes. That's a personality thing, which I go into in my health. My consulting. I go into what drives you. Anger is the big driver. People who can change have a lot of anger. People who have very limited anger, sad communicators, scared communicators, people seeking validation, people seeking information, are people who they have trouble because they analyze and they seek feedback. They look for motivation around them rather than from within them. A person who is angry, myself, others, can push ahead. Other people can lose weight, but it's a lot harder. So you have that, and then you have their natural life force that is something that they just have. And so Elapim, it's hard to say if your father will ever be able to do that. Probably not. And that's the reason most people tend not to be as successful the more they age. And it's not just, and the problem is still in the youth too, but it's for a different reason. They have the life force when they're young to do it, but they don't have stability, mental maturity. So if you combine mental maturity, in your late 30s, you're at your best because you have the maturity to let go of the foolishness of your 20s, the drunken binges and, robbing liquor stores and doing crazy things. 18, 19 years old, you're at your worst because you're a nut job. You're mature physically and producing children, but you're not. You don't have the wisdom. And so when you're at 36, 30, I lost my weight at 39, and but I consider myself in my prime now, even though I'm technically past it. But it's where your natural life energy is, and that's the thing that you have to resign to your higher power That's the work of nature. That's the work of the cosmos. That's the work of the divine. Everything that happens ultimately ties back into how much life force is not abated in you and him and others. I'm really sorry, but yeah, my father takes 6 different medications now. One for his joints, one for his high blood pressure, one for AFib. His heart doesn't keep a rhythm anymore. Others because he has clotting problems. All of those things are things that he struggles with. I don't know that he will ever find the strength to do it. And ultimately, what you have to do is resign that it's probably not going to happen. And I hate to tell you that. And it is extremely disappointing to see those around you waste away. And I have a guy who's on the other end of the spectrum. He's about 4'10", and he's 28 years old. So what is he going to do when he's 38 and 48? I've tried many times to get him to go, but he's not mature enough. Maybe 10 years from now, when he starts having joint problems from all the weight, he'll reconsider. Everyone in life is at a position, it is where they're supposed to be, but it's not the same as where they will be. So they need to learn these lessons, and hopefully they can change. In your father's case, I really don't know, and I'm sorry that I don't have a more peppy answer for you. Champagne region. Okay. I don't know where that is, but I'm one of those who cannot handle any wine. So even if I was a drinker, I would not be able to enjoy any champagne with you because I get smashing headaches. 2017. Thanks, Melissa. Yeah. So you're 50. Okay. Yeah, Debbie is quite a powerhouse now. She's done so much. I remember when we first talked, and she's a lot of people are like this now. Debbie's just a regular on here, so there's a lot of other channels now that are starting up. Started with this one. So Deb is 57, and she did it. And she has a good measure of anger in her. But she's not a primary. She's more of a glad than. But she has that strength, that enough strength in it. If a person is too low, and I'll tell you an example while we're on the subject. I counseled a lady about around the same shortly after I met Debbie, and this woman had such low anger, like it was a 2 out of a 99 being the top, and a 1. Nobody's really a 1 or a 99. Everybody's in between. He or she was so, and I looked at her graph and I could see that she was the type of sweet old church lady that would always go to potlucks and make dinners, but would never, ever do something for herself. So if someone asked for her to do something, she would do it without question. But because she felt for others, she had high altruistic tendencies. Altruism is one of the graphs in my assessment. And then her economic was very low. Well, that's your anger driver. That's your get things done. So if you have low economic and high altruistic, you care more about others than yourself, which is sad. Well, guess what? She'd never been able to lose any weight because she couldn't do it. And I had to develop a routine with her where I showed her how that is. But I could never work with her. She was never able to lose weight. To this day, she could never find enough. It was too much of a traumatic experience to her to resist others. She was completely submissive. If anyone told her anything, she felt obligated to do it. If that's the type of person you are, then no, you would have trouble. Debbie's very much not that way. She's very go-getting, very outgoing, very strong. A lot of people have different measures. So when you look at the different dimensions of a person's, their aesthetic, how well do they conform? Their economic, that's the what's in it for me. The strength of character, the raw anger, that depends on your anger emotion. Your political, your ability to be controlling, that's not politics, it means controlling. Your ability, your aesthetic, your care for others, your scholastic, your regulatory, all of those are things that if you add them up, 11 different dimensions, I can see what makes you you. I can see what drives you to be effective or not effective at certain things. The bottom line is, if they want it enough, they'll do it. And that's why I tell people, I still get desperation emails every other day or so. And it's just somebody from some part of the world that says, I keep failing. What do? I just keep losing my mind. And I said, you've got to want it enough. You've got to say, I need to change because this is the end. For me, it was looking at Kayla and seeing her play and not be able to keep up with her, and me saying, look, in 10 more years, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be on that fat map. My cousin, I did a video on it. Death is not quick. Go back and watch it, some of you. Death is not quick. You die that way. These people that get big, they don't live long. How many big people, like really big people, do you see? Not many. Not many at all. He did try and only ate 2 meals. See, that's again, people realize what they're getting into. Elipam. They start and then they do okay for a while. Well, most people do okay for a while. But then they start to realize, well, now I don't feel good. They burn off their liver reserves, their glycogen in their liver, and they start realizing, I don't feel very good. Here's what I would do for Dad. I would try him on a juice fast because it's a little bit easier. Just put him and give him the guidelines, the basic guidelines, but he would do only juice, and you would have to basically, if you have a juicer, there would be some drawbacks to it, but it would be easier to do than, I would try to get him to do that, and then help him getting a number of beverages ready that are as least pasteurized as possible, and that's going to be his best shot. It's the most easy but still challenging routine that he could do. Maybe he would be able to stay with it. See, we have Debbie, and then we have Guitar Man. He says, I'm 53, and it's never too late to change if you have the correct mindset. That's what we're saying. You can do it. I have a guy who is 72, the oldest guy I've consulted with, 72 years old and losing weight, and he's been fat for years. He's not terribly fat, but he's he wanted to help his joints, and at 72 he had a gut on him, had a tire on him, and he's mostly lost it. He's doing really well, still doing it. All right. Vel says, how are you? Me, or is there somebody in the chat? Or I'm doing super, if that's for me. I'm doing better than I've done in a long time. I feel so good right now. I could run 5 miles. Your mother got on board and stopped using meds for sleeping and depression. That's great. She's probably the same age, close to the same age as your dad. For those of you who are listen to this. Let me stop here and make a point. For those of you who are 50 or above, if you're not on meds, that's a really good thing. Do you know how many people I graduated high school with in 90? I graduated high school in 93. Do you know how many people that I went to high school with now that I talk to? They're already taking high blood pressure medicine. They're taking high cholesterol. They're taking metformin for diabetes. For those of you who are not doing that, you have already beat. For those of you in your late 40s, because it starts to crop up at about 41, you start to run into little problems. For those of you who are already past 50, you get the torch, because a lot of people are already having kidney failure. I have a neighbor back in San Antonio, and he's got liver. He's about to have to go on dialysis. He has diabetes, and he's about to have to go on insulin because his metformin's not working for him well enough. And he's not particularly fat. He didn't take care of himself for years, and he's a drinker. But he's one of the guys is he's a little older than him. Another guy's 51, and he's on dialysis already. And you guys who are in your 50s, let me tell you, there are people that it's like they're already 65, 70. And I dated a woman who was 51. And she, I mean, I want to say, she looked a little bit, she had trouble at first, she was already having her hip replaced. And I was like, holy crap. She's like, yeah, I have an appointment next summer. I'm like, wow. I didn't end up dating her long. We dated a little bit, but that just goes to the point that I was making. For those of you in your 50s, you're at the crucial point. But for those of you who have beat the curve, you stay right with it because you cannot afford to lose it, or you start to end up when you are 65 and 70, then you end up with problems. And it's just like I tell the drinking crowd now, the 20 somethings, 24, 26 years old, 21 years old, you go out and binge drink, you can get away with it for a while, but you're going to wear out because by the time you're 32, 33, your body will have had it and you'll have more wrinkles. You'll feel your liver is going to start backfiring on you, and you're going to go in and you're going to do a checkup one day and you're going to get surprised because you're going to get the bad news from your doctor. You can, Amassing Health, just reach out to me at joe@joeholmanonline.com. It's the easiest to remember. You can do also omadrevolution@gmail.com. I check both of them. Hello, Maria. Good to see you. Very good to see you. Hey, you can always go back and watch later. Not everybody can be available. Is that a mask icon with a emoticon with the oh my goodness, our society's truly ending. We've already got emoticons, folks, with the masks on. M95 mask, or what is it, N95 or M95? Hello, King Leo. How are you? From Dallas. And hey, he's onto something. Burdock root tea is great for blood pressure. If you do it consistently and you're not taking in high salt and you're not aggravating it with bad foods or too much food, that is a great way to get a quick reduction of blood pressure. Burdock root tea, you can get it on Amazon. They have quite a good stock of it. It's sitting in there right now in my pantry. Jarek says, what do you think about Jordan Peterson? He's one of the most fierce debaters around, and I love him because he annoys the hell out of me for some reason, but he's also one of the sharpest I've ever seen, because he comes off like he's too well spoken. He's such a well spoken intellectual, but I have to agree with him on just about everything because he is so sharp, and I love him. I think he's great. He and Ben Shapiro, if you guys kind of want to get an idea of who I follow, Michael Medved, some of those are too conservative for me, but I do side with conservative because the way a conservative thinks is, it doesn't matter how you identify, by the way. It doesn't matter if you think you're conservative or liberal. Your brain type will choose your beliefs. If you are primarily liberal, you will end up siding with views that are emotional. So you will prefer to watch NPR and CNN versus Fox. Your brain will start if you're liberal, you'll like pastel colors. You will love tattoos and stuff like that. You will love freedom of expression and artistic concerns over logical and needed concerns. Jordan Peterson, he became known for those of you who may not know him, which everybody here should. He's very famous now because he identified really as liberal, but he said, no, you cannot pass a bill that criminalizes gender neutral pronouns or preferred pronouns. Of course, that's fascism. He's absolutely right about it. And so he continued to use his degree and his education to push that, and he became well known. That's exactly the sort of thing that I'm behind. So despite the fact that there are things, I love him because he's right and about so much. And but yeah, I do tend to, that's kind of my crowd. Let me go back. Okay, Amassing Health says, can you give insight on starting a weight loss consultation practice slash business? I've lost 65 pounds and 29, and people always ask for help, but I'm not sure of how to effectively serve others. This is, oh, I could go an hour, but I'll give it to you because, okay, here's how. First of all, let me tell you, if you haven't heard, how I got into doing what I did. Same as you, people were asking me how I did it, and they would say, I would meet people and they'd say, wow, you've lost weight. You don't even look like the same person. I barely recognize you. Well, it got so tiring telling people how to do it that I decided to jump on my fitness pal, and then someone on my fitness pal told me to get on YouTube, and that resulted in people unsolicited coming to me for advice and saying, I'll pay you just to talk to you on the phone. And then I said, and then some said, well, I'll get on Skype. I don't want to share my phone number. I created a Skype account for this. And then, that was it. People came to me for advice. And so here's what I can tell you about that. I really kind of felt guilty at first taking people's money if they weren't going to lose weight, but I justified it saying it's my time, that I'm selling my time. It's not based on your results. It's based because most people, I wanted to be able to convey my success because I was excited, of course, but I didn't really I had no experience doing that, just, talking to people about business management. So I ended up combining the two in a weird way. But my challenge was, I said, look, you're just paying for my time. I'm happy to help you. And then I found an avenue into that with personalities, and people wanted to know more. And I found that people that will pay for consulting are generally more serious than those who won't, because they're looking to self better. And that's what is a real difference. And then they were willing to pay for more for an assessment and pay my friends at the person that supplies mine. So it took off from there. What I can tell you is that I might do full-time consulting at some point. I really don't want to now because I'm happy with my hotel, my life in hospitality. But it may trend. This may change all of that. I may actually jump over and end up doing that because a lot of people have a lot of need for that. I've tried not to do it, though, to be honest with you. I've tried not to do too much consulting because, I like what I do, but that may change and I may have to do it. But here's what I can tell you as far as the value concern. The value, if you're struggling to start a business, the problem is you're not showing or you don't have value. That's what I've learned. Money changes hands when problems are solved. So if you're offering a solution and somebody has a problem, guess what? You're going to meet in the middle. And that's true whether you're selling, hibachi, grills or weight loss consulting. It's true regardless. If people believe you are legit and you have a platform, you'll be able to succeed. If you're not legit, you either don't know how to promote yourself at all, or you are people don't see that you have value. You're just starting, so it's not. And here's the thing: you're 29. Oh yeah, people want to see you. You'll do better than I did because you look. Your market is a more youthful spending market. I'm appealing to an older crowd at 45, soon to be 46. I'm a different crowd. So a lot of people don't want to see me with my shirt off. People don't want to see me doing workout videos or doing shared blogs with people, who are basically, you're not kids, but you're pretty young. So your demographic, if you can be relevant, the challenge for you would be content and staying relevant and finding your niche. So your niche may be maybe you're a bookworm, maybe you're an intellectual, maybe you're kind of a hippie, but most of the demographic, appealing to your demographic is the other part of the challenge. Adding value, number one, and then showing it, number two, and then appealing to a demographic. So that's what I can give you on those things. But again, I'm nothing to look at. I'm not in the crucial age bracket, and yet I'm successful as I want to be. And I haven't really tried. So, except being honest. That's what I sell is truth and honesty, I think. That's the advice I can give you without. But when you reach out to me, and we'll go longer. We'll go more in depth on that. It's a lifestyle. I can't go back to my old ways, Melissa says. That's it. If you think of it any other way, you're going to fail. Anybody can crash diet for a week or 2 weeks. How many people have done that? Have you guys crash dieted? And of course, you can lose weight crash dieting. You can put it all back on if you don't have horse sense, and if you don't realize you're going to do that. How do I recommend guiding people to optimal health? Telling the truth and being harsh about it when it's time, because I can't. That's the thing. I can't do that. That's the fallacy behind all consulting. You find out you can't help people. You can only hold up the mirror to help people see themselves and share your experiences and let them apply what applies. And sometimes it won't apply. Some of my experiences don't apply because a lot of my approach is high carb. Some people can't do that because they're diabetic. So I have to. The challenge is to share what is relatable. And of course, everything is relatable to some, but not all. And that is why that's the nature of consulting. But a lot of times, if I'm talking to someone about one area of life, the beauty of consulting is that you help people in more than one way. So I'll talk to someone, and most of my consulting sessions, maybe half, end up with people crying because they find out why they started overeating. They found out that, like me, when I was abused by a teacher at 5 years old, that's why I started binging. And when we tracked down why people started overeating, and they tell me things about themselves and about what happened, and then they realize where they've gone wrong, and that opens up a spiritual awakening. Like we talked about earlier. And so it becomes a life spark. It becomes a moment. That's what I am really about. I don't care about getting rid of some belly fat, or that's incidental. All those things, it comes back to your spiritual health. That's what makes it. That's what makes it real and raw. I would yo-yo diet on weight loss until it clicked. I cannot go back to my old, because that's the key piece, Melissa. You understand now. You didn't understand that before. Your less wise version did not understand that. So Elipim says your mother she's 60. At 55, she was almost because she became septic over a kidney stone. Yeah, if your kidney stone, that's another reason, to get, I'm sure glad she's still with you. I'll be 55 in May, Maria says. I'm beating high blood pressure and my diabetes numbers are down and steady. That's great. You are in a very fortunate crowd, because a lot of people are doing really bad. And I have a guy who works for me, man, and he's constantly eating, and he's on insulin. Every time I see him, he's eating. And I've tried to help, but I can't. So. I see people my age, and I'm always shocked at how old they look already. People always comment about how young I look. I thank OMAD for that. It saved my life. Definitely. You're standing toe to toe with your daughter, your 32-year-old daughter. That's awesome. Y'all both look great, and I'm glad your daughter Debbie is doing so well. Debbie has the Facebook group, Melissa. I do not. I don't do Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, any of that. My kiddo does all of those, but I don't do any of them. I just don't like the platform. I don't like the little updatey features. To me, I would rather go to a blog or like something. I have LinkedIn, and I have YouTube, and I have my website, which is going to be reinvented soon. And then forums connected with the OMAD site, which will all be one. All of that's going to be one. Movie reviews, my writing, the OMAD consulting, and my HR consulting, all of that will be one site, separated properly and done much better. I'm 40 and people think I'm younger. That's awesome. I tell them fasting is the key. Well, 39, turning 40 in October. Hey, man, you get to 40, 41. It's 40 going into 41. You start to experience some different feelings. I would get a lot colder. I wouldn't handle colds. Well, you're just subtle changes in your body. But you got it, man. You've got it knocked out. So stay with it, man. I did have a Facebook group, Debbie and Melissa, but I never could do really anything with it. And there's really no point if I'm going to have. I don't. At the time, they were really big on censorship, but now Mark Zuckerberg has been really good about at least trying to offset that. So yeah, I just don't. But more power to y'all. I mean, there's no reason not to do it. If Hi RR, how you doing? Minnesota. What part of Minnesota? I went up there when I was married many years ago, and it was I loved the cold at the time. It was we flew into St. Paul International Airport and spent a few days, and then we went up to Duluth, and we went up to International Falls and spent like a week, and it was awesome. Y'all are free to post your links to your respective uh, accounts, and I won't. I'll approve it. It may flag it as spam. I'll approve it. Y'all are part of the group. I don't mind you linking to other stuff. Duluth, yes, Duluth is so beautiful. I love looking on Lake Superior. Loved it. When I went there, Minnesota was it was actually warm. The high on the last day I was there was 30. So we got off the plane and it was 16 degrees and it warmed up to like 30. I think we went December 16th, 2002. And everybody was complaining it was so warm. And I'm like, wow, it is so cold. But everybody was like, no, this is warm. It's not really cold. But I used to love the cold. I don't handle it quite as well now, but I still like it when I'm in the mood for it. So it's definitely that way. Let's see. Now, Nevada gets cold too, doesn't it? It gets cold, but it warms up. Like it also gets hot, right? Michigan, it's just cold. Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, actually is one of the coldest places in the U.S. One of the contiguous U.S. It's one of the coldest cities with population above 500,000. I'd imagine, man, the Las Vegas Strip is all closed, just like everywhere else. It's creepy, right? Because you're used to prostitutes and pimps and pushers and drunk kids and gamblers and everybody just walking up and down, and then normal people that are just having a night out. I mean, it's chilling, right? It's yeah. Yeah, I've traveled to Colorado. People watching non-existent. So it's like, yeah, just a ghost city. Well, you know what? We can't stay in forever. We can't. The economy is going to take such a bad, vicious beating that it will only be able to get worse. I mean, only be able to get better. And then we'll have to resume a good sense of normalcy at some point. So. What's the population of Duluth? I think it's 100 and something thousand, right? 200,000. I'm forgetting now, but I remember it had a lot of hills. Man, I was so blown away. All the hills it had when I went. Where's this new emoticon mask? Emoticon. I don't see the new mask emoticon. Gotcha. 90K, yeah. Really nice. Big enough to be useful, but small enough to be quaint. Val says, I'm 25, been doing OMAD since 22. I wouldn't go back to frequent eating. What was your goal, Val? Was it maintenance or just losing a little bit of weight, or was it losing a lot of weight, or what's the story? People have different reasons behind why they like people have a lot of reasons for why they do fasting. Some people, it's just mental clarity, and they have a challenge maybe putting on calories because they're not some people are really obese. They're just concerned with the weight loss. Okay, face _ medical _ mask. And then it's got the colons on each side. Okay, that's how you do that. That's funny. I like it, man. That's cool. It's a sign of the times. But of course you do. You feel much better empty because your body is able to take those calories and put them elsewhere. And that's why you're feeling that way. And the more you do that, like when you do a juice fast, like my meal tonight will be in addition to this, will be carrots, about 6 to 8 carrots with 3 apples. And it's a great meal because you feel so good. It's in the sugars with the enzymes, they're so good and so strong. You feel so good when you eat it. I put cayenne. It's hot. That's how I get my taste. Man, it's hot. This tastes so good. I have to stir it. I think I put too much cayenne pepper. My face is turning red. Ask some questions, folks. You guys got some questions? Ask some questions. Now is the time we got. I'm going to stick around for another hour. If you want to come or go, no problem. JJ's back. No, this natural, I had to add the cayenne. This isn't spicy. It's just tomato juice by itself until I added the cayenne. But you talk about a blood pressure magic, man. That cayenne is good for you. It's really good. I've been loving a good apple with peanut butter lately. I'm not with mixing apples and peanut butter. It's not. I love them individually, and I can do apples anytime and peanut butter anytime, but I don't combine them. And I know a lot of people really do. It's like some people like peanut butter and celery. I never touch celery unless it's juiced, and I still don't like the taste of it. Yeah, I know, Debbie. I know you said you don't like spicy. You can't do a whole lot of spicy. You don't like tomato juice, JJ? Compared to chips and junk, what do you mean, Melissa? Dr. Fung does teach. I mean, he's got a lot of good content. Those are completely raw, Highwaymen. They are 6 raw carrots with 3 Washington apples, and I make a nice little thing of juice, and that is dinner tonight. My thoughts on long fasting for healing. I don't really think that it will heal some things, fasting. I don't know that you can. I think that is what a lot of people experience on extremely long fasts are resets, yes. But a lot of that is a lack of the body's is having to compensate for its normal operation. So it's suspending stuff like inflammation. I don't know that a whole lot is being healed. I do know that healing occurs. And your body does use up damaged cells and broken cells and cancerous cells in a way that is much better than if you didn't do it. Definitely. And it will heal all of the gastrointestinal things. Diabetes, Crohn's, insulin resistance, stuff like that. Unless it's hereditary, it will get rid of most of that. What was the name of that juicer you swear by? Well, here's the thing, Debbie. I'm in a crisis right now. So I've gone through many juicers and I've had to take many back. I'll tell you the one that I have used that I recommended 2 years ago that I still recommend is a Mueller for a budget juicer, Mueller, and it's only like 80 or 50 bucks on Amazon, and it is one of the best I've ever had. I had it 2 years and I was brutal on it. And it just now died on me a month ago, and I threw it out and got a Breville, and the Breville's good, but it doesn't remove as much juice, even though it's $170, $190 I paid for it, I think, with tax. And they have them in stock. It's like I got it new at $85 on Amazon, and the Mueller juicer. It's a silver wide mouth juicer. The ones that are the best are Omega and Breville, but Breville, the one that I got that's a wide mouth in there that I just told you about, the cold juicer. It's tough and useful and easy to clean, but it is not. It really leaves a lot of juice to go to waste, and I'm kind of sorry I bought it and that I didn't buy an Omega slow masticating juicer for $100 more. But I swear by that Mueller. And Breville's a good name. You can get any Breville. Get the one that's $370. That's the best one because it leaves more dry pulp. It's higher power. I need to lose a lot of fat weight. I guess he tried to say there. I'm starting OMAD tomorrow. I've been intermittent, but I thought I would probably feel better with OMAD. How to get through lunchtime is what I want to know this week. That's what your beverages are for. You use your replacement beverages when you're hungry. You will feel like crap. You'll go a few days, you'll feel all right, and then you'll get tricked into thinking it's easy. Well, guess what? It's not easy. You're going to have hard times, and it's going to be hard for about 2 weeks, but it'll get easier after the first 4 days, and then after the first 7, and then after the first 10. So your challenge will be to stick with it, and that's what's going to be your challenge. Oh, apples and peanut butter compared to chips and junk, you were saying, Melissa. Oh, absolutely. Oh, hands down. But here's the thing. Chips and junk has a place. If you're in a tight spot and it helps you to go to McDonald's one day, go to McDonald's. Again, don't become a food purist. None of you guys. Don't be a food purist because it's very difficult to sustain that. In a society with too much food, sometimes the best thing to eat is a burrito. Sometimes the best thing to eat is normally those don't eat those things too often, but if you have to or want to, you can. But yes, I fully agree. Obviously, apples and peanut butter are going to be a much better choice, and you'll know the difference because the more chips and junk you eat and breaded stuff, I don't know about you, but I get canker sores in my mouth. I used to until I started taking the mushrooms, the magical mushrooms I told you all about. which fights whatever virus is in the body that allows that. But you'll feel unwell. Plus, you'll gain weight and everything, and you'll feel less. You'll start to want to eat more junk, and that's the fallacy with eating junk food is you want to eat more. You go and eat a bunch of chips. What happens? Well, then of course you become wanting more junk. You don't feel good after you eat it. You feel actually worse. Now I'm wanting some tomato juice. Well, I don't know if you have a Kroger's, but I think you do. I don't know if Kroger's up there. You can get these for $1.60, and I bought 6 of them just to have around when I'm doing my juice fasts. It's also a good meal beverage at the meal because it's nutritious and it doesn't have artificial sweeteners. It has low calories, no fat, and is nutritious. For men especially, tomatoes and the effect of tomatoes on the prostate is a wonderful thing. All done. You guys just witnessed it right there, and you get to witness me look like a fourth grader here with stuff on my mouth. It's burning, man. It's hot. Oh, the rest of the stream, I'm going to look like a fourth grader. What do you think about sweet potatoes? Hate them. I do not do sweet potatoes. I do not do cinnamon. I do not do coleslaw. I do not do Brussels sprouts. I do not do pimento cheese. I do not do sauerkraut. Anything pickled, I don't like. That's Joe Holman for you. I don't like it at all. I'm just going to tell you that. That's absolutely the way it is. You go get you some tomato juice, Melissa. JJ says, I was doing keto, then carnivore. Hate them. No tomato juice for some reason. I have an addiction to frozen blueberries. Well, blueberries are the best thing. Your sugar levels, they're really good on blood sugar. But yes, they're good. I'll never not like blueberries. Amassing Health asked 2 very good questions. Man, you're on a roll. I'm gonna, after I get back from another little break here, I'm going to answer them. Stand by, please. Am I hoarding toilet? Let's see. Okay, let me catch up here. First of all, on the toilet paper question, no, absolutely not. But I was smart and bought some before everything happened unintentionally. I do happen to have some because it was right close because I knew I was going to be drinking this juice, which, by the way, is why this is here. Now, I'm going to celebrate a little tonight and have a Pib Zero. Because I haven't had one in 2 weeks. I don't drink them often anymore, especially juice fasting. I don't even have the need to. Okay, I'm going to get to amassing health questions here. Such good questions. Can you go over what it means to be fat adapted? Oh, easy. Fat adapted just means your body has switched over into light or partial or full ketosis and is burning your fat instead of your sugar. So it's going to ration your energy by burning what's on you. And OMAD is a form of ketosis, but it's very light ketosis versus something like keto or Atkins, where it is full ketosis and your body is completely in, it's going to burn up all of your reserves. Your liver's not going to have any glycogen. It's going to be forced to go into full ketosis, which, by the way, is not healthy. And if you remember the reason why, I went over it in my video on why on carnivorism is because the Aleutian Islanders aren't, and all the people who are the Maasai and all of these people who've adjusted to it, they don't go into ketosis anymore. And the reason being, their ancestors died. The people who first moved there and had to adapt, they had to develop immunity. That's why it doesn't happen. But it does happen for us because it's a form of shock. It's a form of crisis, which, of course, OMAD is, but it's a lot more manageable. Your body can adjust to that and keep you going versus something like keto or carnivore, which you can do, but it's a lot harder on your system, which is why I don't recommend it. For those of you doing keto and carnivore and you're smart about it and you know your body, that's good, keep doing it. But with me, I was never able to really utilize that to my advantage. Number two, what is the absolute worst thing that you see happening with the economy right now? Well, that's a broad question. Does that mean things that I don't like about the way the market is, or does that mean what do I see people doing that is like wasteful? I think that there's a lot of push to raise minimum wage, and I don't like that. The reason being, you have to let the market determine that. And when this broadcast opened, when I talked about socialism, how the market sets value. The market says, how much this Mr. Pibb is. If I say I'm going to charge $5 million for this Mr. Pibb, that's the market's not going to go with me. I'm never going to sell it. And likewise, if I charge zero, well, then I'm not going to make any profit at all. So the market sets where everything is. You fall on a rank the same way if you go to a chess site to play chess, you have an ELO, which is a type of measurement of how strong a game you can play. A world champion has 2,700 or above. A weak player has 300 or above. And the scale starts at 300. Well, you start with 1,500, but even if you can't play at a 1,500, the more games you play, if you're only an 800, you will settle down to that. And you will not be very as strong, but it'll take a while to show that. And the same thing with the economy. So in terms of a minimum wage, people want a minimum $15 an hour. It's nice, but if the market doesn't bring you to that, then you can't justify it. Otherwise, it's going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's going to be stripping the wealthy to pay the poor. But the problem is you can't sustain that. It's going to run out. Just like the healthcare thing, you have to pay. That money's got to come from somewhere. Those doctors must be paid. You cannot, because money is just value. Nobody can. That's why when you come into this world, just to poke your head in and breathe costs something. And that's why life doesn't spontaneously generate, because the organisms that are competing for it are already here. They'll snuff that out. You have to be a strong enough organism to survive. The economy has to be strong enough. And so forth and so on. So, but with the economy, I think that answers your question. If not, then please narrow down and I'll take a stab again. Autophagy is the term for healing through a fast. There is truth to it. Oh, for sure, for sure. Autophagy. Yes, you're using up your reserves. Listen, folks, if you've got a meal on you, now's the time. Now is this time of crisis. This is the time to start burning off your reserves. For those of you who are just starting, you're in the perfect spot because you're going to be catapulted to success because you're going to pretty much have to be. Melissa is addressing a great point here to RR. If lunch is your hardest, do lunch, then fast. Very good point. On the other hand, you may decide to do breakfast because you're less ravenous and it's easier to stay in control. So lunch is, when I'm back on a normal OMAD plan, a late lunch is usually my meal time between 12:45 through 4. I have my window and I try to get it in there. Yes, I have to splurge once in a while. Definitely, Melissa. Everybody is healthy if you splurge, and your metabolism actually benefits from it. And this is what I've said to people. If you go a while and you're losing weight and then you go and splurge and you jump back on your fast properly and you don't abuse it, you'll keep losing even faster than if you didn't do one. But I don't say that anymore because people keep going out and splurging too much. So that's why you haven't heard me say that for a while. People have misaligned what I've said, but the vast majority, if you are truly starting and your body has adjusted, you've given yourself at least a month or to 6 weeks, and then you add in splurge carefully with calculation and not just out of impulse, you will succeed. Val, you eat raw celery? That's something else. I will never join that club. Yes, RR. It was a roll of toilet paper because I knew I was going to get it on my mouth when I drank the juice. That's why I was sitting here. I have no class. There's no pictures on these walls. Look at me. I'm a minimalist. Daniel says, I like cinnamon and Splenda. I do Splenda sometimes in my coffee, but now that I haven't wanted it as much lately, I just do regular black coffee. But cinnamon, no, 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 no. No cinnamon. Cinnamon is porridge, very good on porridge. Oh, y'all can have the cinnamon, okay? If I ever get a whole bunch of cinnamon, you send me your address, I'll send it to you just to get it out of here. Do not like it. I have no love for it at all. Well, I'm drinking, Maria, I'm drinking a lot of beverages all day. So, yeah, I'm going to be going to the bathroom a little bit more. But I'm sitting here in front of you drinking chaga and water and coffee and now tomato juice and diet soda. So it's got to go somewhere, right? I won't be doing this for long. I'll transition back into regular OMAD. That is at some point within probably 10 days here. The reason you can't find them, JJ, is they're only distributed in Houston and select cities. So if you want, you can order them online or I can send you some. I don't care for the Mountain Dew Zero. I really don't care for it. I've tried it a few times and each time I said maybe I'll like it later, but I've tried. I really don't like it. Raw turmeric and ginger. Now, ginger I like. Go figure. Turmeric and ginger. I do turmeric rice. Ginger, I just boil and have ginger water, and it's a blood thinner. It's good if you want to go run. Like I mentioned on the last live session, we did, or the ginger and chia seeds and beets will increase your run by quite a ways. You will have very good endurance. It's definitely like that. Too much turmeric is no good though. It'll quickly ruin things. It's one of those things. It's like ginger. Just the right amount can make a Chinese dish or something, but it's it'll over unless I'm doing ginger tea or ginger water, whatever you want to call it. If I use too much, then it's not going to. I use a lot. I use just a whole bunch of. Just juice it up and then go on a run, or just do it when I'm sitting around. It tastes good too, I think. But I don't like cinnamon. Hi, Franco. Good to hear from you, buddy. You're on the the downward slope again, huh? I know Franco lost a whole bunch of weight, and then I think you gained some back, didn't you? You mentioned you quit for a while. Franco, jump on board my new ship. I'm still going to post some videos, but our main goal will be on another site. So probably, very likely, very likely, super soon. Email me on that, and I already have your email, so I'll reach out to you when the time comes. When did you start again, Franco? I think he got down to about 180 and mentioned. Let's see, the Pib Zero. It's had its time. I'm ready for non-sweet again. 2 Sundays ago. Okay. Oh, okay. So you got to get started again, man. You know what you've done it. I remember your first struggles. You reached out to me, man. That's really good. But yeah, guys, what I'm doing here, sipping things, that's how I managed to get through horrible temptations. That's how I did it. I just kept a bottle, and I just played with it, and then I kept going, so that there was always. I felt like I was eating. I felt like I was drinking. I had a little bit of fluid on my stomach, and it wasn't. It made it easier because it takes your mind off of the challenge. So that's why. That's how. Take a hint for those of you who are really struggling or about to struggle. Yes, Debbie, I will go into my assessments. For those of you who haven't, you know that I offer for a fee. I do a 1-hour consult over Skype for people they just want to talk to me about my experiences. And this is my best seller because I get people who they just want to say, what's it like to go through this? And I might do videos and touch on every question, but then not have any, not get to a point that someone has. So they pay for a consult at a flat rate. Now that the elite consultation is advanced, it's way more deep. It's 4 hours. I usually take around 4 hours with someone, and I get them to fill out 2 surveys. A TARP survey 1 and a TARP survey 2, and each one are measuring different aspects of your personality. Are you mad, glad, sad, or scared? Are you results oriented, relationship oriented, validation seeking, or information seeking? Extroverted or introverted? And then there's 11 more dimensions to that, which is what the second assessment does. It looks at your economic strength. It looks at your what's in it for me bias. It looks at your individualistic strength, your ego. This is your this is your desire to be the life of the party. A lot of people are, people that are social or that have usually a very high individualistic score. They want to be known. They want to stand out. Someone with a high economic score is a very tell it like it is person. Someone who's saying what's in it for me. Someone who has a very high aesthetic score is a groupie, a person who conforms, a conformist. A person with a very low aesthetic score, like me, is a nonconformist who doesn't fit well into any one crowd. A high political score is a high controlling factor. How much desire do you have to dominate over the destinies of others? And when you put all of those, and then there is altruistic, the ability, how much care you have for others. A person who's a hippie, for instance, someone who's generally on the left will have a higher altruistic. They have more emotions. They reason emotionally. So they feel for others more than someone who is on the right, for instance, generally. And then a scholastic score. High regulatory score, which tells me how black and white your thinking is. Are you a person who says, how many hairs make a beard? Or are you a person who says, no, you're either pregnant or you're not? All of those. And then finally, you have a theoretical. Are you a philosophical person by nature? Are you someone who tears apart things into the nuts and bolts of how things work? A high theoretical would be someone like an IT guy, someone who has a lot of analysis paralysis. A low theoretical is a very military type of person who just hears it and does it. And that doesn't mean smart. A person can be very smart but low theoretical, meaning they don't think very much, but they're intelligent. They're able to do as much as they need. So if I combine those, and I find your major behavior type, I'm a mad. Debbie's a glad. A lot of other people, I counseled a guy this past week who was a sad. And then a scared is like an IT person. They're analyticals. They're very deep thinkers, philosophical in nature. I'm a mad scared. But once I identify that, I look at the different graphs levels that you have on the 11 different dimensions, and I'm able to see what drives your worldview. Debbie says this is very eye-opening and huge for self-improvement and self-awareness. And it is. I've never had somebody be dissatisfied with the graph, the TARC graphs. This is, it's honestly, it allows me to predict a lot of your success and a lot of your struggles. It allows me to see the type of person you are, and sometimes much more than that. I've had so many sessions that lasted longer than 4 hours because I had all sorts of different people. I meet all sorts of different people, and I use the same assessment for the business world when I'm trying to work with clients to troubleshoot what's going wrong with their business. And I'll look at what area of the market they're having trouble with. They're having trouble with their finance guy. They're having trouble with their operations guy. And I'll get them to do graphs on these people. And I'll compare the graphs side by side and see where the disconnect is. Is a person, for instance, a yes man? Does he or she just acknowledge? And then because they're really fundamentally outgoing connectors, they don't want to do any hardcore stuff. Some people can be multi-categories, but it's usually one or the other. So I'm able to say, if you move this person here, you'll find success here. Well, what I do in this context is in a nutrition or wellness context or spiritual context even, is allow you to benefit from the knowledge that you yourself most people would kill. Isn't it the case, folks, that you would kill to be able to see yourself the way others do? Isn't that correct? Because we live our lives in prisons. And the prison is the prison of not knowing what others think. We live with illusions. We live with lies. We live going 70 years not knowing how others think of us. And then, when people get silent when you come in a room, they're not telling you things. Well, I'm the person who can help you in addition to improve your weight or your the ability to deal with some high blood pressure. I can help you with knowing your job better, knowing how you fit in at work, how your coworkers see you. Because I can reason from a base and say, guess what? Here's how this comes off. And I'll give you an example since we still have about 45 minutes to go here. I had a guy that he kept running into problems, and a friend of mine who runs a company with me, he came to me and he said, I want you to work with this guy because he's having trouble getting along with people. So he came to me, and this was a man. He's kind of an unusual man because he was highly intellectual. He was high theoretical. So he was a philosopher. He was a techie person, but he was also a high economic. And when they're high economic and you're high analytical, you get an anal retentive person who tends to be less personal and more involved in his own well-being. So he was high individualistic too, though. A person with high individualistic is the person who goes into the room and is very outspoken. So he wants the credit. So when he starts talking in a room, he's not using his social sense. He's using his ego. High individualistic people are the people that their sense of I did this is in high gear. So you have an analytical person who's also a high individualist, who's a high economic. What does that mean? Well, basically, and he's low altruistic. So he doesn't give a crap about you. He goes into the room and he spouts off at people. And he starts talking about what he wants to talk about. And when he's given other work, he troubleshoots it. And he says, I don't agree with that. Well, you just told another boss, who's also his boss, how it should be. Well, and naturally, they think he's a selfish prick because he comes off that way. Well, when we went over this in the session, he completely he learned from it, of all things. And I predicted that he would, but I wasn't sure how long he would. He actually learned to curb his behavior, and he got a little bit better after that. He wasn't perfect, but he did a lot better. And I said to this person, I said, do you see how others are perceiving you? You're coming off like a prick. Here's why. And he's a high analytical, high egotistical person with low altruistic. So he doesn't realize that when he doesn't connect with others, that's a big deal. And people will regard that. Most people have the sense to say, hey, how are your kids? They have the sense to connect with people on some level. He did not. So he was all about him. And since he didn't know that, but that gives you an example of what my elite assessment will do if somebody is interested, because it is very detailed and it is all out. You will have no questions after that. You will definitely, you will see yourself and the world and others in ways that you only dreamed of before. And I don't like to toot my horn because it doesn't stop with me. I was taken in by my mentor who saw my potential in this sort of thing and agreed to bring me on. So I've learned this from people too, but what made me kind of get into this and fall into this and be a better manager was my fasting experience. So that gives you a background on the elite assessment. It is another world compared to what just me answering questions. I was extremely egotistical and neurotic before fasting. I could only think one way, and I was extremely liberal. After fasting, my spiritual waking, my entire psyche expanded. And the longer you do that amassing, your brain will make permanent changes. It will start to, you might even notice you have a different favorite color. You might notice you have, you might get more dominant with your other hand. You might notice other subtle changes. And on my journey about my 3-year experience, I talk about how my permanent, your brain wiring will change because your brain is having to change how it operates. And yes, liberalism is about entreating yourself. It's about the emotions and satisfaction. Conservatism is by nature fasting, poverty, famine. That's conservative. I mean, regardless, it tends to make people more objective, more truthful, and more aware. Even if a person's views on life don't change altogether, their perception of reality and themselves and others will change. And this happened to me in 2014. I started to notice changes. I noticed that my perception changed, and I would begin to read people and talk to people on phone calls and be able to predict things pretty well. And that led to, my own awakening and my own blossoming in my own management genre. I can now recognize when others are neurotic and have a limited thinking capacity. It feels so good to have a free mind because Your brain is reasoning from, we have to bond together to survive. You are reasoning stoic. You have switched gears. You're not reasoning, why I ordered a pizza an hour ago, why isn't my damn pizza here? Epicurean versus Stoic, once again. You read books. Since my awakening, I've been reading a ton of books on spirituality, consciousness, transcendence. That's it. You need to check out Alan Watts if you haven't. He was one of my first influences when I lost the weight. Tons of videos all over YouTube. Just listen to him on your iPhone or whatever. When you're out, you can download them, and there's hours and hours of listening. And he was truly one of the most expanded minds of the time. I can give you a few of my favorite books. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Good to Great by Jim Collins. Many others. The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. Some of these are business books. Oh my goodness. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Oh my goodness. Let Imagination Run Wild. Thank you for that, Debbie. With fasting, amassing says your consciousness expands and you become a greater version of yourself. Absolutely, because you have to. When you are challenged, you become greater. When you are given laziness and gluttony and ease, you become a lesser version of you. Look at Rocky in Rocky 3. He's used to fighting all these bums, and then he meets someone like Mr. T who's hungry, and Mr. T knocks him off, and he realizes what he had and what he lost, and then he can take it back when he's hungry. The eye of the tiger returns, and that's it. It's tapping into the human side of greatness. You're realizing what you can do as a human being versus giving only 30% like some of you are before. You don't realize what you've left behind. Done. And now I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish right here. And the last part of that is pretty powerful. Serve others. You find satisfaction in serving. You find satisfaction in doing mundane work, sometimes just physical work. And this is one of the things, if you guys want another recommendation for who to follow, Mike Rowe, he was on the blue collar, he's the blue collar jobs guy. So many people, folks, find great satisfaction in doing an honest trade, not going to college, just specializing in something. When you're in a fasting state, that it gets taken to the next level. Whether it's cleaning your house or doing a patrol as a security officer or a parole officer, or your brain finds greater meaning in repetition, because it starts to feel like you are working toward nourishment, which eases your lizard brain, which thinks you're starving, you're dying. And that the return is dopamine. That's why if you let your house get too dirty and you don't do things for a while, what happens? You start to feel crappy. You start to feel like you don't matter. You become drudgery. You caught in drudgery. Your mind just kind of goes away, and you don't. You stop doing well because you don't have anything pushing you forward. That's nature rewarding you. The divine, if you will, rewarding you for this, for advancing. Do you know if anyone has lost a relationship after fasting? I can't say that I do. I would say that that's probably the case. I mean, I don't think, unless a person changes some other aspect, let's say they had friends that were drinkers and partiers, and then they started fasting and reclaimed their health and broke their addictions, and they no longer hang out with people who do that. I think that's possible. But I don't necessarily know anyone who actually lost relationships. But I'm sure I connect much better with higher performers after my initial fasting experience than before it. You change. It does. It changes you. And here's the thing, amassing, you'll feel like this for another couple years. You will, maybe longer, and then finally you'll come down a little, and you'll be a little bit scared because you'll start to struggle with the question of maintenance like everybody does. But you'll find out that it's really nothing. Your brain it's like two people going out and meeting each other and falling in love. There's that high that's initially there that paints your experience so that you're honestly running on endorphins. And after a while, that wears off, and any differences in the relationship start to come out, and that destroys things. No, thank you, Amassing, for throwing out questions. A couple of you are much more talkative than others, and I understand that that's going to be the case, but I appreciate it very much. What I'm trying to do tonight is to provide an avenue to take solace during this time of crisis, since a lot of people are at home. That's what this is about. And the more questions, the better. Vel says, I hope to get a girlfriend who also fasts. Just be sure you get a girlfriend who shares your desire to self-improve, and it shouldn't be hard. If you get one that wants to be accepted where they are, then it's not going to work because you won't be able to change it. I don't know how old you are, but that's a lesson you got to learn. It's really not that way. That cayenne pepper stuck in my throat. That's why I'm drinking so much. Y'all are going to get to see me blow my nose here because of that cayenne I used a lot. I'm just terribly sorry. But it's been working on me all this time. And I love hot stuff, man. I can take all the hot stuff you can throw at me. Elapim says, I'm a paraprofessional for adults with disabilities. My job is to serve them and assist the classroom teacher. That's a great job. You're finding, I'd imagine, great satisfaction in that because you're dealing with people who don't have what you and I have. It's very definitely true. Very definitely true. Yeah, that tomato juice with all that stuff is in my the top of my lip, so it's burning. That's my advice to all of you guys. Find people in your life, put people in your life, whether it's a girlfriend or whether it's somebody else, put people in your life who are where you are in your journey. And remember the law of 33%. You have 33% behind you who are where you've been, looking up to you. You have 33% who are where you are. And then you have 33% who are ahead of you, who are where you want to be. The last 3% is just you. Or what is that? Oh, it's the last 1%. Only 1% should be you. What's wrong with my mind? Terribly sorry. You guys are seeing my role here. You're seeing my routine here. I wonder how many people will change their chosen career path after this virus/lockdown. Probably quite a few. I think it's going to happen. I would dare say I don't know what kind of percentage that I could put on that, but it always is. Suffering always has a silver lining. A good crisis is always useful. New priorities are the things that we find all the time that allow us to succeed and allow us to benefit. And part of the reason is the reason people grow old actually is not so much physical. It's the fact that the brain stops learning new things. the brain stops acquiring new routines. And that's why you feel like you're getting older. That's why time goes by faster as you get older, because each new year is a smaller percentage of your life where you learn new skills. Whereas when you're one and then you become two, you've lived twice as long. And every day, every touch of a toy is a new experience. So you keep going. And then when you're three, you've lived only 1/3. And then finally, when you're four, well, look at how it's going. When you're 26, every year of your life is a smaller and smaller percentage. So not only do you have your physical decay, your body making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and then errors creep in, and you, aka aging, you start aging. But then you have the fact that you quit challenging yourself. You keep relying on the fact that you learned to drive at 15 or 16. You, you know, you did this, you learned this, you went to school and got a degree and you were out by 24. What did you do since then? You quit learning. You quit reading. You just kept eating. You started to do things that you had already built your knowledge base on. Go back to when you were young. You cried, you got sick, you got spanked, you got butt whoopings because you disobeyed, because you were learning. But that's the mark of youth. Learning new music, learning new culture, listening to the way people perceive differences, generation gaps, working to close them. Otherwise, you become irrelevant. And this is the challenge I figured out years ago, managing millennials and now Gen Z. Now that Gen Z's entered the workforce, it's a challenge because the generation gap is different. And then you start to realize how old you really are, because it's incredible how much different things are in 35 years, 45 years, 55 years. Time passes, and just 10 years changes the dynamic to where kids aren't the same. After 1999, 2000, 2007, my generation cannot, they're almost unrelatable now in that short amount of time. So you challenge yourself to do new things, and one of the catalysts of that is fasting, the ability to deprive yourself for a greater end. When you can do that, you start to reach out, you start to become of more value, which of course increases your skill set. And you have a lot of people who go through life, and I've done videos on this, and they don't develop any new skills. They just drift through life. They drift through life learning only what they learned when they were in their teens and 20s, and then they stop. So what happens? By the time they're 42, 52, they develop diabetes and macular degeneration, and it gradually gets worse, and their mind is comfortable. They're not uncomfortable. So until they have to go to the doctor to get some medicine, they only they take the medicine, but they're sheeple at heart. So they quit learning. They'll never do something like fast. And as a result, hard times. They lose it. And then pretty soon what happens when their children and grandchildren come along, they end up in a nursing home like my neighbor did. In the 80s, the early 80s, we had these neighbors in Live Oak, Texas, and he was losing his mind very early, and we could tell something was wrong because he would come out and snap at us kids and just tear our head off and say, "Oh, what are you kids doing in my backyard?" Mr. Willis, we're not in your backyard. We're in our backyard. And he would go, "Oh, but you're very close to my backyard." And eventually, by the time I was in college, his wife was a caretaker of his. He was first in his home and had to be watched. It was early Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is pretty much, we think, diabetes of the brain. You are put in a situation in life, but he lived his life. He did certain things. He never took care of himself. And eventually he ended up dying. He died like a few years later. It killed him, actually. So where are you in that? I didn't finish my college to become a nurse, Elipim says, but this is similar, yet without the nurse pay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. I quit college and went to seminary and got a degree in theology and philosophy, at a religious school, and I started in psychology and education, but I wasn't mature enough to stay with it. I would have finished, but I wasn't. I wasn't mature enough. But a lot of times you live and learn. I mean, you get smarter. You start to realize what you could have done, what you should have done. What kind of work behaviors do you see among Gen Z? Oh my goodness. This is such a good topic. To be honest with you, Gen Z is, the millennials broke us in. The millennials broke us in. Gen Z is, we're ready for it now, because we realize that the shorter attention spans, the more audio and visual style of learning, all of those things can be harnessed very easily. I have learned from Gen Z that if you show them that you trust them, if you show them that they are no different from your Gen X or counterparts, several generations before, then they will be some of the best rock stars you can find. They're coachable because we appreciate them more than we did millennials, who were, everybody took for granted the generation gap. Now we're ready for that. We understand that with the millennials. I'm going to do a video on that on my channel, HR Whiplash. If you're not subscribed to my HR channel and you want to learn more about the business world stuff, go to HR Whiplash. It's right here on YouTube. You'll learn about managing in the business world. I'm a millennial in home health, occupational therapist serving geriatrics. I am curious how it is leading Gen Z through. How are their attitudes? Pretty neutral, because they're eager to learn now. And the millennials, it was more of a fighting for acceptance. But a Gen Z they're up against people who understand them better, the Gen Xers. They're not, the people over them will be millennials, but they've still got us Gen Xers that aren't retired yet. And we're able to more easily lead them because, again, they are very impressionable and they're more teachable than the millennials were. So even though the difference is slight, the difference is significant. And one of the disadvantages of experience is you run into the fact that people who have done it all want to do it their own way, and they're not as coachable. That's true of everyone who's been in the workforce for a significant amount of time. Yes, Debbie, fasting is effective in slowing and preventing Alzheimer's. The problem is the people who need it don't do it. One of my brother's mother-in-law has been stricken with very bad early Alzheimer's, and guess what? I believe she could make big inroads very quickly, but we can't get her to even try. And she's very mild, like her husband is having to monitor her and not stay with her because she'll wander off and do something. I do believe there is a genetic component to it. So it will slow it and it will prevent it, but it may not. There's always a question, again, if you will look at, I'll probably finish this broadcast on this note. When you look at why you have health problems, if you ask yourself, why do I have health problems? Why do I have high blood pressure versus somebody else who has diabetes? Why does someone have Crohn's versus rickets? Any combination. All of that is the marriage of what equals you. So you have to see your disabilities, including your illnesses and your weaknesses, as part of you. You will never beat it entirely. Nobody who has it will. They will never beat it entirely because that's them. That's why somebody like me who has no trouble with blood sugar at all is not the same as someone who does. But I do have a higher systolic top number. I briefly had a high blood pressure spike a few months ago. It went back. The top number went back up to 150. I started fasting again. It went back down to 130. But why is it 130 versus somebody else's 117 or 120? That's to equal me. The things that make you up are the things that you should appreciate. So picture it this way. You have good, you have evil. The good, nobody can be purely good and nobody can be purely evil. On the way to being good are, let's say, the angels. Down from them are good human beings, saintly human beings, by way of example. After them are good, people like doctors and police officers. Outside of them are just normal good people. And then you get to people that they're just sheeple. They don't really have a say. And then you get to people who are, they'll steal if the opportunity permits. And then you have those who are murderers. Then you have those who are career criminals. And then you have those like Hitler who kill. And then you have the devil, so to speak. What I'm trying to get you to visualize there is whether you're a person with depression or any sort of disease, you have to see that as a part of you. You have to see that as a part of you. You cannot have a saint without a sinner. Right now, someone is beating someone to death. Right now, someone is raping a woman. Right now, someone is aborting a baby. Right now, someone is defrauding or swindling someone. And on the plus side of that, someone is giving a life-changing speech to people who need it. Right now, somebody is helping an abused, an injured baby who fell in a well. Someone is giving money to the poor. All of those things are part of the divine's work. So you have to look at that on the macrocosm the same as on the microcosm. The fact that you are depressed and struggle with identity crisis means that you are blessing someone who does not have that ability. And the fact that I can see this means that there will be many who cannot. And that is a warped way to look at the world from the Western perspective, because we're always taught that you can improve. Well, of course you can improve. You can go to your maximum, the ceiling of what you can accomplish. But to use the words of Job, here shall you go and no further. When God was describing to Job, did you encompass the seas and say, I will let you come here and no further? The same way, the very dust particles on the far side of the moon and their measure, all of those things are part. And it seems incidental to us because we've been taught that there's such a thing called chance. We've been taught that there is such a thing called random, that there is such a thing called I can do this versus this. You can't do anything except what the universe will do, which is, if you will, God or fate or amoebas or evolution, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what title you put on it. That is the true magic of. So when you look at someone and you say someone has Alzheimer's, I want to try to prevent it. What you need to look at it as, I hope I am the divine's will in helping them to reach their best version. So you might get to where they can just control their blood sugar or their Alzheimer's, that they stave it off. You won't solve the problem. That's the disability aspect of things that people don't understand. Your disability is part of you. It's like getting a model of computer with 8 gig and being mad at it because it doesn't have 12 gig. That model is not meant for that. I know that's creepy, and I know that sounds new agey, and I know a little bit religious. I'm not religious, but you try to think. Go this week and try to think your whole life that way. Try to think about everything in your life being perfectly well intended. If you get a sore throat, if your family dies, if you come into some money, all of those things are the divine will. And it's taken me 40 years to see this. But everything that happens could only happen the way it happens. That's down to your internet having trouble, down to you having the hiccups too long. But everything about us, everything that we're taught defies that. So yeah, we can fight this coronavirus. We can try, but ultimately, divine will be done, and everything, good or bad, as we perceive them, will come out in the wash. I hope you can trust me on this. If you don't, how many of you hearing this think this is freaky? Think this is weird? I hope there is somewhat of a foundation here that you can at least investigate. Because I was always taught that one day there will be perfection versus the imperfection of now. And one day there will be heaven, and for some there will be hell. Folks, those are of our own making. They have nothing whatever to do with a place. There is no geographical location of hell or heaven. They are the polarizing culmination of our reality. Think about it like that, if you can. Stretch your mind to say, yes, I was born with Tourette's, or I was born with this, or I was born with the inability to control this. And your life will be much simpler because you'll quit being in a self-esteem situation where you think it is, you always having to be better than yourself. You right now are absolutely where you need to be. And where you will be is where you will get. Isn't there a beauty to that? Isn't there a magic to that? Isn't there a self-esteem gem there for you? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you think I'm an idiot who's rambling. You probably wouldn't have stayed as long if that were the case, though. Debbie said, "Are you believe everything is predetermined?" It's more than that. It's the universe is its own happening, and that is too big to put into words. So you could say that it's predetermined, but it's predetermined to not be predetermined. So that's why it's the universe is trying to outdo itself, because otherwise you have no eternity. You can call it predetermined, but that implies that there is somebody who is predetermining something. It's not like that. The universe is so big that you yourself, as the capillary or a blood vessel, cannot say, "Hey, heart, what are you doing?" The heart has a different function than your capillaries that make up your lining, your spleen, your liver. So picture yourself as one blood vessel floating in a sea of white blood cells and red blood cells. Every little part is essential, but not every part knows what the other one is doing. Does that make sense? The divines will work in your life the way it will work, however limited or however not. And that means that those who are not ready to receive that, their role is to offset. The same way you cannot have a chess game without dark and light. You can have any color. You can have green and yellow. You can have light blue and dark blue, but you still have to have dark and light. So that is part of the big machine, which some call God. I don't use the term God because God is a loaded word, and it means I'm going to punish you if you're bad, and I'm going to, and I'm going to reward you if you're good. The reward is that you have played your part and found your happiness. Do you see the difference? The reward is that you did what brings you back equal satisfaction than what you gave. That's your heaven. And when you close your eyes in death, whether it's traumatic or not, won't matter. You will have served exactly as you had to serve. You can call that fate. You can call that anything you want to. But ultimately, your testimony will be perfect the way it is. Amassing Hell says, "I was in hell when I was in my ego." Exactly. Study Alan Watts. Study the role of ego, and he talks about all of the legends of Gautama, the original Buddha, and the Buddha, and says, people came and said, "Master, I don't know who I am," and the master replied, "Who is this I you speak of?" That's the sort of thing we take for granted. Joe Holman is nobody. Melissa Lewis is nobody. Daniel Coaster is nobody. Amassing Health, you're nobody except who the whole system defines you as. So once you know that, you realize that there is no measuring stick. There is only you doing what gives and is and brings value. You were trapped in your head. Now you realize that all of that was a lie. All of that was taught to you was simply a copula, a fantasy, something that it's like your child seeing a monster, looking at a dark, partially lit light switch and seeing a monster in it. It's all perspective. And then suddenly you got to a point where you realize that the image is gone. There's no spook there. There's no tormenting deity there. There's no, you're not measuring up there. There's only you. And you accepting that there are no strings attached. There are no caveats. Reach out to me, Amassing. We'll talk more. Everything you say has value. Well, it does to those who are ready to receive it. There are many who will not be, and that's fine. We definitely create our own destiny because you are what you do. You are. That's why I have that up on my office. on the board. You are what you do. You are the work you do. Your creator is the sum of all things and definitely lives in you and through you. It feels great to be free, but you just didn't know. The prison was in your mind. You thought that you owed somebody something. You thought that you know what your mother taught you should or shouldn't do from when you were little. What church you go to, what demographic or what political group you should belong to. And if you don't do this, you're the enemy. There are no enemies. There is only yin and yang. There is only black and white, and all of those, all of the various microcosms make up the big machine. And guess what? You cannot understand it, and you cannot understand it because it is what you would call God. That's the only word that has no meaning. The term God that we use all the time, but it has zero meaning, because that's what we're talking about, the indescribable. That's why when cosmologists look at the universe expanding, they're totally confused. Why would that happen? What comes outside of that? What makes something expand into nothing? What you're reaching is your limited knowledge, because you, as that little red blood vessel floating in a sea of blood, can only see to the end of this cavern. Outside of that, you don't have any way of seeing it, but you don't have to. And that's what you now realize that you didn't realize before. I hope that's making sense. You're in full hunger high amassing. You got it. I remember those feelings so well. I'm back into them now. It's powerful stuff. I've had many years now to separate like a buzz high versus hunger high. Being clear is different than being high. Being motivated and clear is different than being just buzzing like you're buzzing on caffeine. Well, I'm going to wrap it up now. We've been on going on 3 hours, and we will do it again. Think on these things. If this has been beneficial to you, let me know. We will do another chat probably at the end of the week, and sooner if something happens. These comfort casts will continue if you continue to see value in them. We are the church, so look out, church left the building. Our church left the building. We're being told not to congregate. Yeah. Here's the thing. If people want to meet for church, that's fine too. Just get on Skype. You can do a multiple conference call, and the conference call services are going to be really busy after this because they're going to have a lot of business from people meeting. There's business Skype, and there's just the regular Skype, which I still use. It's good enough for me. Here's to our session today. And that is it for today. That is it for my beverages as well. So I'm going to say good night. And if anybody has anything else, just chime in. But we will thank you all so much. It has been quite a time. Good night.